I'll be all yours. Just put a son in my womb, begged the barren young woman to the Apache Omega. The young woman lived on the edge of a dry, dusty town where the land stretched wide and the wind carried stories from one house to another. Her name was Lila, and she had once been known as a cheerful girl with bright eyes and a soft laugh. She had grown up in a small home where her mother taught her to cook, sew, and dream of the family she would one day build. As a child, she believed that her future would be simple. She would marry, have children, and fill her home with warmth and noise. For years, that dream felt certain, like a promise that life itself had made to her. Leela married young. Her husband, Daniel, worked on a nearby ranch and came from a family that valued tradition. In their world, a home without children felt empty. At first, their marriage was gentle and hopeful. They laughed together in the evenings and made plans for the future. They painted a small room in their house with soft colors, believing it would soon hold a cradle and toys. Every month, Lila waited with quiet hope. Every month, that hope faded a little more. Time passed slowly. 1 year turned into 2, and 2 turned into 5. Lila visited doctors in towns far away, sitting in waiting rooms that smelled of antiseptic and worry. She listened carefully to every suggestion, followed every instruction, and held on to every small chance of success. Some doctors spoke kindly, while others spoke with distance. Tests were done, and answers came back with words that felt heavy. They said it might be difficult for her to have a child. Some said it might not happen at all. At first, Daniel stood beside her. He told her not to lose hope and said that they would face everything together. But as the years went by, his voice changed. He grew quiet at dinner. He spent more time at work and less time at home. His family began to visit more often, but their smiles felt strained. His mother would look at Lila with eyes that held questions she never asked aloud. Neighbors spoke in soft whispers when Lila walked past. No one said anything directly, but she could feel their thoughts. In that town, people believed that a woman's value was tied to the children she raised. Without that, they saw her as incomplete. Lila tried to stay strong. She kept the house clean and warm. She cooked meals and waited for Daniel to come home. At night, she lay awake listening to the sound of the wind against the windows. She wondered if she had done something wrong, if she had failed in a way she could not fix. She never spoke these thoughts out loud. Instead, she carried them inside, where they grew heavier each day. One summer, a long drought hit the region. The fields turned pale, and the rivers ran low. The town struggled, and people from nearby lands came together to share water and supplies. Not far from the town was a large ranch run by members of an Apache community. They had lived on the land for generations and understood how to survive through hard seasons. A meeting was held between the town leaders and the ranch workers to plan how everyone could help each other. It was the kind of gathering where people tried to put aside differences and focus on survival. Lila attended the gathering with Daniel and his family. She wore a simple dress and kept her eyes lowered, hoping not to draw attention. The meeting took place in a wide-open area near the ranch. People spoke in small groups, sharing news and concerns. Lila stood near the edge, feeling like she didn't belong anywhere. That was when she noticed him. He stood apart from the crowd, speaking quietly with a few elders. He was tall, with a calm presence that made people listen when he spoke. His name was known in both communities. Some called him a leader, while others simply respected him for his strength and fairness. He worked hard, kept to himself, and carried an air of quiet dignity. People said he had faced many hardships and had come through them stronger. Lila watched him from a distance. She didn't know why she noticed him so much. Perhaps it was because he seemed steady in a way she no longer felt. He looked like someone who knew his place in the world, someone who wasn't defined by whispers or expectations. He turned away, telling herself it was foolish to think about a stranger when her own life felt like it was falling apart. The meeting went on for hours. People discussed water, crops, and how to support each other during the drought. As the sun began to set, small groups started to leave. Daniel walked off with some men from the ranch, talking about work. Lila stood alone near a wooden fence, unsure where to go. She felt a sudden wave of loneliness so strong that it made her chest ache. It felt like the world was moving forward without her. Before she could stop herself, she walked toward the man she had been watching. Each step felt heavy. Her heart beat fast, and her hands trembled. She didn't know exactly what she planned to say. She only knew that something inside her had reached a breaking point. When she reached him, he turned and looked at her with calm eyes. He seemed surprised that she approached him, but not unkind. For a moment she couldn't speak. The words stuck in her throat. Then, all at once, they came out. She spoke about her life, her struggles, and the pressure she felt every day. She spoke quickly, afraid she would lose her courage if she stopped. Her voice shook, and tears filled her eyes. She said she felt invisible, like her life had no value without a child. She said she was afraid of losing everything: her marriage, her home, her place in the community. The man listened without interrupting. His expression remained serious, but not cold. When she finished, there was a long silence. The wind moved gently across the land, carrying the sounds of distant voices. He finally spoke, his voice steady and firm. He told her that what she was asking for was not a simple matter. He said that life and dignity were not things to trade or bargain. He told her she deserved respect, and that her worth could not be measured by what others expected of her. His words were not harsh, but they were clear. He refused her request and stepped back, creating space between them. Lila felt a deep wave of shame wash over her. She realized how desperate she must have sounded. She lowered her head and apologized. She turned and walked away quickly, afraid that if she stayed another second, she would break down completely. That night, she returned home in silence. Daniel did not ask her what was wrong. He went to bed early and the house felt colder than usual. Leela sat by the window, staring out at the dark sky. She replayed the moment in her mind again and again. She felt embarrassed, but she also felt something else. A small spark of realization. For the first time, someone had spoken to her not with pity or judgment, but with honesty. Across the land, the man stood outside his own home thinking about the encounter. He felt troubled by her pain. He knew he had done the right thing by refusing, yet he could not forget the look in her eyes. It was the look of someone who had been pushed to the edge by loneliness and expectation. He wondered how a person could feel so trapped by the roles others placed on them. Both of them lay awake that night, under the same wide sky. They were strangers, connected only by a brief and emotional conversation. Yet something had shifted. For Leela, the moment marked the lowest point of her struggle, but it also held the beginning of a change she did not yet understand. For the man, it was a reminder that strength sometimes meant helping others see their own value, even when they could not see it themselves. The days after the gathering felt heavy for Lila. She woke up each morning with the same routine, but inside she felt different. The moment she had shared with the quiet Apache man stayed in her mind. She could still hear his steady voice telling her that her worth was not something to trade. At first, those words made her feel embarrassed. She remembered how desperate she had sounded and wished she could take the moment back. Yet at the same time, a small part of her felt relieved that someone had listened without judging her. At home, nothing had changed. Daniel left early each morning and returned late. When he came back, he ate in silence and went to bed without much conversation. Lila tried to speak to him, but he seemed distracted and tired. She sensed that something was shifting in their marriage, something quiet but serious. His family visited often, and their presence filled the house with tension. They spoke politely, but their eyes carried unspoken questions. Lila felt like she was always being measured against expectations she could not meet. One afternoon, while cleaning the kitchen, she overheard Daniel speaking to his mother outside. Their voices were low, but she could still hear the tone. His mother spoke about the future and about the importance of family. Daniel did not say much, but his silence felt like agreement. Lila stood by the sink holding a dish in her hands and felt a deep ache in her chest. She realized that she could not keep living in fear of being replaced or left behind. Yet she did not know what to do next. The drought grew worse. The land turned dry and cracked, and the heat pressed down on the town like a heavy blanket. The community decided to work together with a nearby Apache ranch to share resources and find solutions. A project was organized to repair old water lines and bring supplies to families who needed them. Lila volunteered to help, partly to escape the quiet tension of her home and partly to feel useful again. She spent her mornings carrying supplies, organizing food, and helping elders who needed assistance. The work was simple but meaningful. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of purpose. People began to speak to her with kindness again, thanking her for her help. It did not erase her worries, but it gave her something steady to hold on to. One day, while sorting boxes near the ranch, she saw him again. The Apache man stood near a truck speaking with a group of workers. He noticed her but did not approach. For a moment, Lila considered turning away and pretending she had not seen him. But something inside her told her that avoiding him would only keep her trapped in shame. She took a deep breath and continued working. Later that afternoon, as the sun began to lower in the sky, she found herself near the water station where he was checking equipment. He looked up and met her eyes. There was no anger in his expression, only calm recognition. Lila walked closer, her steps slow and careful. She spoke first, her voice quiet. She apologized again for what she had said at the gathering. She told him that she had been overwhelmed and frightened. He listened without interrupting, just as he had before. When she finished, he nodded slightly and told her there was nothing more to apologize for. He said that pain could make people say things they never thought they would say. What mattered was what they did next. They stood there in a gentle silence. The sound of wind moved through the dry grass. Lila felt nervous but also strangely at ease. She realized that he did not look at her with pity. He looked at her like a person, not a problem to be solved. That feeling was new to her. Over the next few weeks, their paths crossed often as they worked on the drop project. They did not speak much at first. When they did, their conversations were simple, about the weather, the work, and the land. Slowly, those small talks grew longer. Lila began to share pieces of her life, not in a desperate rush like before, but in calm moments between tasks. She spoke about her childhood, her hopes, and how things had changed after years of disappointment. He shared parts of his own story, too. He spoke about growing up on the land, about learning from elders, and about the responsibilities he carried. He had lost family members in hard times and had learned to keep his emotions guarded. Yet he believed strongly in dignity and self-respect. He told Lila that every person deserved to stand tall, no matter what others expected of them. Their conversations never crossed boundaries. They remained respectful and thoughtful. Lila found comfort in having someone who listened without offering quick solutions. He did not try to fix her life or tell her what to do. Instead, he asked gentle questions that made her think. What did she want for herself? What kind of life would make her feel at peace? At first, she struggled to answer. She had spent so many years trying to meet other people's expectations that she had forgotten how to ask herself what she truly wanted. At home, the distance between her and Daniel grew clearer. One evening, he told her he might have to spend more time away for work. His voice was careful, as if he were choosing his words. Lila listened quietly. She realized that their marriage was no longer built on the same hopes. They had both changed, and the silence between them had become too wide to ignore. Instead of breaking down, she felt a strange calm. The work at the ranch and her conversations with the Apache man had begun to shift something inside her. She was starting to see that her life could have meaning beyond the roles others had given her. The idea was both frightening and freeing. One afternoon, while delivering supplies to an elderly woman in the community, Lila was thanked with a warm smile and kind words.
The woman told her that kindness and strength came in many forms.
She said that some people built families by giving love and care, even if it looked different from what others expected. Those words stayed with Lila long after she left the small house. As the drought project continued, Lila's confidence slowly grew. She began to stand straighter and speak more clearly. People noticed the change. They started to see her as someone capable and dependable. The whispers that once followed her grew quieter. She realized that while she could not control what others thought, She could control how she saw herself. The Apache man watched her transformation with quiet respect. He did not push her or take credit for her growth. He simply treated her as an equal, someone capable of making her own choices. Their friendship deepened in a natural and steady way. They spoke about the future, about hope, and about finding purpose in unexpected places. One evening as the sun set over the wide desert, they stood side by side after a long day of work. The sky glowed with soft colors, and the air felt cooler. Lila felt a sense of peace she had not felt in years. She realized that while her problems were not solved, she was no longer drowning in them. She had begun to find strength within herself. The weight of expectation still existed, but it no longer felt like a chain around her heart. For the first time in a long while, she believed that her life could move forward in a new direction. She did not know exactly what that future would look like, but she knew it would be built on respect and honesty rather than fear. As the stars began to appear in the sky, Lila walked home with a steady step. The road ahead was uncertain, but she no longer felt alone in her struggle. Something inside her had begun to shift, slowly and quietly, like the first sign of rain after a long dry season. The weeks that followed brought a slow but clear change in Lila's life. She still woke up in the same house, walked the same dusty paths, and heard the same wind moving through the dry land. Yet something inside her no longer felt trapped. The quiet talks she had been having during the drought project stayed in her mind. The questions she had been asked were simple but powerful. What did she want for herself? What kind of life would make her feel at peace? At first, she did not know how to answer, but now she was starting to think about it more seriously. Each morning, she helped with the community work. She organized supplies, carried water, and spoke with families who needed support. People began to trust her with small responsibilities. She noticed how good it felt to be useful in a way that had nothing to do with the expectations placed on her at home. When someone thanked her for her help, she felt a quiet warmth in her chest. It was a different kind of fulfillment, one that came from effort and kindness rather than approval. Her conversations with the Apache man continued, but they were never rushed. They spoke during breaks, sometimes while watching the sun rise over the wide land or set behind the hills. He shared stories about his childhood and about the lessons he had learned from elders in his community. He spoke about dignity and about the importance of standing strong in one's own identity. He said that every person had a path, even if it did not match what others expected. One afternoon, as they sorted tools near a truck, he told her about a time when he had lost someone close to him. He explained how that loss had made him question everything about his life. For a long time, he had felt empty and unsure of his purpose. But slowly, through work and community, he had found meaning again. He said that pain did not have to define a person forever. Sometimes it could be the beginning of understanding oneself more deeply. Lila listened carefully. She realized that she was not the only one who had felt lost. His story made her feel less alone. It also made her think about how she had been measuring her own worth for so many years. She had believed that, without a child, she had nothing to offer. But now she was starting to see that her ability to care, help, and connect with others also had value. At home, the tension with Daniel grew more noticeable. They still lived under the same roof, but their conversations were short and careful. One evening, he came home later than usual and sat at the table without speaking. Lila placed a plate of food in front of him and sat down across from him. The silence felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. After a long pause, Daniel spoke. He said that he had been thinking about the future and about what they both wanted. His words were slow and uncertain. He admitted that he felt pressure from his family and from the community. He said that he did not know what to do next. Lila listened quietly, her hands resting in her lap. For the first time, she did not feel the urge to beg or apologize. She simply listened. When he finished, she spoke honestly. She told him that she had spent years trying to be what everyone expected. She said she had felt like she was disappearing inside her own life. She admitted that she had been afraid of losing him, but she was also afraid of losing herself. Her voice was calm but steady. She did not accuse him or raise her voice. She simply shared the truth of how she felt. Daniel looked at her with surprise. He had not expected her to speak with such clarity. He seemed unsure how to respond. They both sat there for a long time, letting the words settle between them. Nothing was decided that night, but something had shifted. For the first time, their conversation felt honest rather than filled with unspoken fears. In the days that followed, Lila thought carefully about her life. She spent more time at the community project and less time worrying about what others thought of her. She began to imagine a future where she could build something meaningful for herself. The idea was both exciting and frightening. She had spent so long defining her life by one role that it was hard to picture a different path. One afternoon, while helping at a small clinic set up for families affected by the drought, she found herself comforting a child who had scraped his knee. She cleaned the wound gently and spoke to him with a soft voice until he stopped crying. His mother thanked her with tears in her eyes. In that moment, Lila felt a deep sense of purpose. She realized that care and compassion were part of who she was. They did not depend on titles or expectations. Later that day, she spoke with the Apache man about her thoughts. She told him she was starting to understand that her life could hold value in many ways. He listened and nodded. He said that finding one's path often began with letting go of fear. He reminded her that she did not have to decide everything at once. Small steps could lead to big changes. As the drought project neared completion, the community gathered to celebrate their progress. Water lines had been repaired, and supplies had reached families in need. It was not a perfect solution, but it was a sign of hope. People shared food and stories under the open sky. Lila stood among them, feeling a sense of belonging she had not felt in a long time. She noticed how different she felt compared to the day of the first gathering. Back then, she had stood alone, filled with shame and desperation. Now, she stood with a quiet confidence. Her problems had not vanished, but she no longer felt defined by them. She had begun to see herself as someone capable of growth and change. That evening, she walked along a path near the ranch. The sky was painted with soft colors as the sun set. She thought about her marriage, her future, and the choices ahead. She knew that difficult conversations still lay before her, but she also knew that she had found a new sense of strength within herself. The Apache man joined her on the path, keeping a respectful distance. They walked side by side in comfortable silence. After a while he spoke, saying that life often brought unexpected turning points. Sometimes those moments felt painful, but they could also open doors to new beginnings. He told her that whatever choices she made, she should make them with honesty and self-respect. Lila nodded. She felt grateful for his steady presence and for the way he had treated her with dignity from the start. Their friendship had grown naturally, without pressure or expectation. It had given her space to see herself more clearly. As the first stars appeared in the sky, Lila realized that she was no longer the same person she had been. She had started to question the roles that had once defined her. She had begun to imagine a life shaped by her own choices rather than fear. The road ahead was still uncertain, but it no longer felt impossible. She walked home with a steady step, her mind filled with thoughts about the future. For the first time in years, she felt a quiet sense of hope. It was not loud or dramatic, but it was real. It felt like the beginning of something new, something built on truth rather than expectation. And as she looked up at the wide night sky, she understood that change often began in small, quiet moments, long before anyone else could see it. The air began to feel cooler as the long, dry season slowly came to an end. The work on the water lines had helped the town and the nearby ranch survive the worst of the drought. Small signs of change appeared everywhere. The ground was still dry, but the sky sometimes held soft clouds that promised rain. People in both communities started to breathe a little easier. For Lila, however, the biggest changes were happening inside her own life. She had spent many nights thinking about what she wanted for her future. The honest talk she had with Daniel still stayed in her mind. Their home felt quieter than ever. They spoke kindly to each other, but there was a distance that neither of them tried to hide anymore. It was not anger that filled the space between them. It was the understanding that their lives were moving in different directions. One morning, Lila woke up before sunrise and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The sky was pale and calm. She realized that she could not keep living in a place where she felt small and uncertain. She had begun to grow stronger through her work and through the respect she had found in herself. Staying in the same situation would only hold her back. The thought was frightening, but it also felt honest. Later that day, she spoke with Daniel again. They sat at the kitchen table where they had shared many quiet meals over the years. This time, their conversation was calm and clear. She told him that she cared about him and wished him well, but she also needed to build a life where she felt valued. He listened with a serious expression. After a long silence, he admitted that he had been thinking the same thing. He said that he did not want to cause her pain, but he also felt lost and unsure of their future together. They both understood that their marriage had changed in ways they could not fix. There was sadness, but there was also relief in finally speaking the truth. They agreed to separate peacefully and support each other as they moved forward. It was not an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. When the conversation ended, Lila stepped outside and felt a strange sense of lightness in her chest. For the first time in years, she felt free to shape her own path. In the weeks that followed, she began to focus on building a new life. She moved into a small place near the clinic where she had been helping during the drought. The clinic needed extra hands, and the doctor offered her a part-time job assisting with simple tasks. Lila accepted with gratitude. She organized supplies, welcomed patients, and helped wherever she could. The work was steady and meaningful. Each day, she felt more confident in her ability to stand on her own. People in the community began to see her differently. They no longer looked at her with pity or quiet judgment. Instead, they saw a woman who worked hard and cared deeply for others. She spoke kindly to children, listened patiently to elders, and treated everyone with respect. Her presence at the clinic became a source of comfort for many families. The more she helped others, the more she discovered her own strength. Her friendship with the Apache man remained steady and respectful. They did not meet every day, but their paths crossed often enough to keep their connection strong. Sometimes they spoke near the clinic. Other times they met while walking along the dusty road at sunset. Their conversations were thoughtful and calm. He never pushed her to make decisions or told her how to live her life. Instead, he offered quiet support and honest words. One evening, they sat on a wooden bench near the edge of the land, watching the sky turn orange and gold. Lila spoke about the changes in her life and about the mixture of fear and hope she felt. She admitted that starting over was not easy. There were moments when she doubted herself and wondered if she had made the right choices. He listened carefully and then reminded her that courage often felt uncertain at first. He said that building a new life took time, but each step forward mattered. His words gave her comfort. She realized that their connection was built on trust and understanding rather than desperation. They respected each other's space and valued the friendship they had formed. For Lila, it was enough to know that someone believed in her ability to grow and heal. As weeks turned into months, the land began to change. Light rain finally came, bringing a fresh smell to the air. Small patches of green appeared on the ground, and the river slowly filled again. The town felt more hopeful. People gathered for small celebrations, grateful for the return of water and the promise of better days. Lila continued her work at the clinic and began taking small courses to learn more about caregiving and community support. She wanted to expand her skills and help more people. The doctor noticed her dedication and encouraged her to keep learning. With each new task she mastered, her confidence grew. She no longer saw herself as someone defined by what she lacked. Instead, she saw herself as someone capable of giving and growing. Her relationship with Daniel settled into a calm understanding. They greeted each other politely when their paths crossed in town. There was no bitterness between them, only the acceptance that they had both needed different futures. Lila felt grateful that they had parted with respect rather than anger. It allowed her to move forward without carrying heavy regret. The Apache man remained an important part of her life, but their bond stayed grounded in mutual respect. They shared stories, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection. Sometimes they spoke about the future in general terms, never rushing or forcing anything. Lila appreciated the steadiness he brought to her life. He reminded her that strong connections could grow naturally over time. One afternoon, while helping at the clinic, Lila looked around at the families waiting for care. She saw children playing, elders chatting, and neighbors supporting one another. She realized that she had found a place where she belonged. It was not the life she had once imagined, but it was a life filled with purpose and dignity. As the sun set that evening, she stepped outside and watched the sky change colors. The air felt cooler and calmer. She thought about the journey she had taken, from fear and desperation to strength and self-respect. The path had not been easy, but it had led her to a place of quiet confidence. She understood now that fulfillment did not come from meeting everyone else's expectations. It came from living honestly and treating herself with kindness. She had learned to value her own worth and to build a life that reflected who she truly was. The road ahead still held unknowns, but she no longer felt afraid of them. Standing under the wide-open sky, Lila felt a sense of peace she had not known before. She had rebuilt her identity step by step, finding purpose in caring for others and believing in herself again. The world around her felt full of possibility, and she was ready to keep moving forward, one steady step at a time. The rain that had finally returned to the land did more than bring water back to the rivers. It brought a quiet sense of renewal to the people who lived there. The dry fields slowly turned green again, and the air felt softer and cooler. For Lila, the change in the weather seemed to match the change inside her. She no longer felt like someone waiting for life to begin. She felt like someone already living it, one day at a time. Her small place near the clinic had become a true home. It was simple, with a narrow bed, a small table, and a window that faced the open land. Every morning she woke early and opened that window to let in fresh air. She brewed tea and watched the sunrise. These quiet moments helped her feel steady. They reminded her that even small routines could bring comfort and strength. At the clinic, her role had grown. She now helped with scheduling, greeted patients, and assisted with basic care. Families who came through the doors often smiled when they saw her. They trusted her calm voice and gentle nature. She listened to their worries and tried to ease their fears. Some days were busy and tiring, but she never felt useless. Each task she completed gave her a sense of purpose. One afternoon, a young mother arrived at the clinic with two small children. The mother looked tired and worried. Lila helped them settle into the waiting area and spoke to the children with a warm smile. She offered them water and simple toys to keep them busy. The mother later thanked her for the kindness. She said that it made a difficult day feel lighter. As Lila watched the family leave, she realized that she had become a source of comfort for others. That thought filled her with quiet pride. In the evenings, she sometimes walked along the path near the ranch. The land looked different now, alive with new growth. She often met the Apache man there. Their conversations were easy and natural. They talked about work, about the changes in the community, and about the small moments that made life meaningful. There was no pressure between them, only a steady understanding. One evening they sat on a low hill as the sky turned soft shades of pink and gold. Lila spoke about how far she had come. She admitted that there were still days when she felt uncertain about the future, but she also said that she no longer felt trapped by fear. He listened and nodded. He told her that growth did not mean all doubts disappeared. It meant learning how to keep moving forward despite them. He shared that he had also learned from their friendship. He had spent years keeping his emotions guarded, focusing only on responsibility and work. Watching her rebuild her life had reminded him that strength could also mean opening up and trusting others. Their connection had become a quiet support for both of them. As time passed, Lila became more involved in community activities. She helped organize small health events at the clinic and assisted in teaching basic care to families. She also started reading in the evenings to expand her knowledge. She wanted to continue learning and growing. Each new skill she gained made her feel more confident about the path she was creating. Her relationship with Daniel remained respectful. They occasionally spoke when they saw each other in town. There was no bitterness between them. They both understood that their separation had allowed them to find peace in different ways. Lila felt grateful that they had parted with kindness rather than anger. It made it easier for her to move forward without carrying heavy memories. The community slowly began to see her as someone strong and dependable. People who once whispered about her now greeted her warmly. Some even asked for her advice when they faced difficulties. She listened carefully and shared what she had learned about patience and self-respect. She never claimed to have all the answers, but she offered understanding. One day, while helping at the clinic, she received news that a training program for community caregivers would be held in a nearby town. The doctor encouraged her to apply. At first, she hesitated. The idea of traveling and studying felt overwhelming, but she remembered how far she had come and decided to try. She filled out the application and waited with quiet hope. Weeks later, she received a letter saying she had been accepted into the program. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was a chance to learn more and to help even more people. She shared the news with the Apache man during one of their evening walks. He congratulated her and said he was proud of her courage. His words meant a lot to her. They reminded her that she was capable of more than she once believed. As the day of her departure for training approached, she packed her small bag and prepared for the journey. She stood outside her home and looked at the land that had witnessed her struggles and her growth. The sky was clear, and the air felt calm. She thought about the woman she had been not long ago, someone who felt lost and desperate. She could hardly believe how much had changed. On her last evening before leaving, she met the Apache man near the hill where they often sat. They spoke about the future and about the paths that lay ahead. He told her that wherever life took her, she should remember the strength she had found within herself. She thanked him for his friendship and for treating her with respect when she needed it most. Their bond had been an important part of her healing. They did not make promises or plans. They simply shared a moment of quiet understanding, the sky above them filled with stars, bright and steady. Lila felt a deep sense of peace. She knew that whatever happened next, she was ready to face it with courage. The next morning, she left for the training program. The road stretched ahead, filled with unknowns and possibilities. As she traveled, she felt a sense of hope that she had not felt in years. She was no longer defined by what she lacked. She was defined by what she had built: strength, kindness, and self-respect. Months later, when she returned to the town, she brought new skills and new confidence. She continued working at the clinic and helping the community. She also kept in touch with the Apache man, their friendship steady and supportive. Whether their bond would grow into something more in the future remained uncertain, but it no longer mattered in the way it once might have. What mattered was that both of them had found healing and growth. One evening, as she stood outside the clinic watching the sunset, Lila felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her life had taken an unexpected path, but it had led her to a place of purpose and dignity. She had learned that belonging did not come from meeting every expectation. It came from living honestly and caring for others. The sky above her glowed with warm colors as the sun dipped below the horizon. She breathed in the cool evening air and smiled softly. Her journey was still unfolding, but she no longer feared what lay ahead. She knew that she had the strength to keep moving forward, to keep growing, and to keep building a life that felt true to who she was. Under the wide open sky, she stood tall and steady, ready to welcome whatever future awaited her.